Well, thank you, Frank, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to address you today on what is a critically important topic for our state, our country, and of course, my industry. Firstly, let me acknowledge the Premier of Western Australia. The Premier has been a champion of the relationship with China, and I think has set an example for governments and business alike. So I commend you, Premier, for the tremendous leadership that has been shown in establishing and maintaining a very strong and positive relationship with our biggest trading partner. And of course, the Chinese economy is critically important to us. It is now the second largest in the world, but the fastest growing, and it is only a matter of time, probably a decade, before it overtakes the US as the world's largest economy. It is our largest trade partner, and China will continue to be prominent in Australia's growth and be the key determinant of our growth for some time as the rest of Asia continues to develop. So it is critical for the resources industry, but it's also critical for many other industries and leverage within the Australian economy and the Western Australian economy specifically. And China recognises the importance of the Western Australian resources and the Western Australian economy for its growth and support. And I think it is through recognition of that relationship and the deepening of that relationship with both government and business alike that we're able to provide both the iron ore, the LNG, and of course the agricultural products that support it. I believe that a highlight to this relationship was the fact that the Boao Forum for Asia was in fact held for the first time outside of Asia here in Perth last year. A very significant acknowledgement by the Chinese of the importance of Western Australia and a great opportunity for us to showcase. We were, of course, as Fortescue, a very proud diamond sponsor of that conference, as we have been for the last 4 years and will continue into the future. Fortescue has developed and was in fact conceived of as an organisation through the development of growth in China. It is China's insatiable demand for resources, and in our case iron ore, which has driven us to focus predominantly on China as our customer base and to look to develop products and supply chains that support that economy. Today, we have supplied more than 200 million tonnes to China, despite the fact that we've only been in operation since 2008, and more than 95% of our product goes to China. Now, a lot of people have asked the question about the Chinese boom in its economy is over, and that we'll see a change into consumer-driven economy in China. But let me tease out the statistics around that a little bit. China today has just reached a consumption of steel per capita of 500 kilograms. And of course that's about where the US sits today, so you could say, well, surely the steel consumption has peaked. But in fact, the US took more than 30 years to urbanise with a steel consumption rate of 500 kilograms or above, and it was the laggard of many other countries such as Korea and Japan, and in some cases in Europe, where that occurred for some 45 years. So given the level of urbanisation in China is just hitting around 50%, and the major steel demand in the US occurred between urbanisation of 50 and 75%, I would see that we've got some decades of very strong steel production growth in China yet to go. And so it will be, I believe, that the central and western urbanisation of China and the completion of infrastructure through those provinces which will drive steel demand. As the Premier said, I think the new leadership in China is going to be focused on growth, but focused on growth with significant balance, and we won't see the double-digit growth that we've seen in the past, but of course off a much bigger base number, numbers of around 6 or 7% still represent significant increases in base number. Our relationship with China has been developed around more than iron ore though. Of course iron ore offtake and sales is the critical underpinning factor, But we've also turned to China to purchase the machinery and equipment that can't be economically made here in Australia. And to date, we've purchased more than $4 billion worth of heavy mining equipment and machinery from China. Much of that has been supplemented with local construction and local fabrication of those items that can be done economically here. And thirdly, of course, is Chinese investment in our company. Hunan Valin Group in China was a cornerstone investor in Fortescue and has won the award of the #1 investment of a steel company in overseas investment with its investment in Fortescue. And today, Fortescue and in particular our chairman Andrew Forrest have been working to establish the Sino-Australian Business Leaders Partnership Initiative. Now, like the Premier, I was a little underwhelmed with the white paper, but I did think at least that it was excellent to see the federal government was taking a lead from WA in focusing on the relationship that we have with China as one of the core determinants of our success. And I broadened that out to the greater context of Asia. But it now needs a strong commitment to action and execution, because without that it is just going to be another white paper that didn't establish anything further. And it is significant that this year is the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations with China. With a new leadership group in China and a new generation of leaders, it is an ideal opportunity for us to deepen the relationship and strengthen the relationship for the future. I guess another issue that has started to creep into a lot of the discussions that we're having with our customers is this issue about the US and China. And I fervently believe that it is wrong for us to think about a choice between our friends in the US and our friends in China. Both of these relationships are extremely important, both in terms of the history and the future relationship that we're forging. And this is like choosing between two very close and good friends. And in my view, we need to develop our relationships for both. Relationships, of course, are about high levels of trust, and the way to develop that trust is by mutual understanding, and it is only through business and government contacts, but also at a social level and an educational level, that we will deepen and strengthen that understanding. And of course, Western Australia is an ideal inbound destination for Chinese tourism, if only we can do something about the strength of our dollar. So for us at Fortescue, China will remain the key focus for our business, and we will continue to drive our development very closely in step with the economic development in China. It is about a multi-level relationship and the three components to that I spoke of earlier. And today we are driving towards a capacity of 95 million tonnes by the end of December, which will grow very rapidly to 115 million tonnes in the second quarter of next year, and eventually 155 million tonnes. I think one of the important features that we constantly remind ourselves about that is that it is not scarcity of resource which is driving customers to look to Western Australia to meet their needs. There are no end of great resource provinces around the world. What we need to do is continually create an environment which attracts investment in infrastructure and mine development into this country. So from our perspective, both Western Australia and Fortescue are integral players in China's growth. And while it was once said that perhaps Australia rode on the sheep's back, today it seems we ride on the dragon's back. Thank you.